Good morning. Here we are on our second session of Own Your Genius. I love these sessions, and it's so much fun to bring my amazing clients to the room and start sharing what they're putting out into the world. You know, I'm all about creating a ripple effect in the world, and this is why I love these so much, because when you start to look at what these women are doing in the world and how they're making an impact, how they're showing up and serving their communities, you'll see why I am just so passionate about sharing their stories, sharing what they're doing, and really help get their voices out in the world in a bigger way. So I am thrilled to be introducing you to three extraordinary women today. First, we have Tara McFarland, and Tara is creating a conversation of connection, transparency, empathy, and vulnerability. Yes, vulnerability in the world of engineering. So working with engineers and helping them really look at that four-letter word of vulnerability. So Tara, welcome. Next, we have Kathleen June, who is helping entrepreneurs develop compelling digital content and courses and create courses with heart and a sharp focus. She's a master at adult learning and knows how to bring the best of how we learn as adults and help all of us who are creating online courses bring that wisdom of how adults really learn to the table. So Kathleen, welcome. And finally, we have Kathi McCarty, who is from the Meth, Toxins Awareness Alliance. She founded this organization after an incredible journey that she'd been on, where meth toxins impacted her life and really changed how she was living life and had to really shift up everything in her world. And she's on a mission to make sure that people know about the dangers of meth toxins in our homes, in our real estate around the world. And she's going to be sharing some really shocking statistics about how big of a problem this really is in our world right now. So I am so thrilled to be having all three of these women here with us today. So Kathi, we're going to start with you. And would you just take a moment and introduce yourself? And so just tell us a little bit about you and what you do. You have to unmute yourself.
Thank you, Cami, for being here. Thank you, Cami. I'm excited to be here once again. As the founder and an advocate and an activist for meth contamination, I'm excited to have a chance to share statistics in my journey. It is a shocking story. On October 7th, 2018, I learned that my family home, our sacred space in the mountains, was a meth lab. And through that journey, it has taken me through a process where I realized at the heart of my vision is to protect people and their homes, their family investment, and their communities. My mission is a three-pillar focus to bring awareness on the health impacts, the physical safety impacts, and to ultimately affect legislative changes.
And those legislative changes are really needed. I know. Tell us a little bit about, just tell us a little bit of your story. I mean, I think your story is, there was that day where you found that the person that you'd rented your family home to had been cooking meth in your log cabin. And that impact of finding that forever changed. Tell us a little bit about this journey that you have had to come through on this.
Sure. There is obviously an underlying foundation as to why I chose to rent out our family home. I had a health event in early 2016. I am the proud mother of three amazing kids who were all off, grown in college and beyond, living their lives. And I chose to walk through that very challenging chapter by leveraging my asset and helping to cover some extensive medical expenses and life changes. And I, at that time, rented out the home, and in 2018 used a property management company, went through the vetting process, thought I asked all the right questions, put all the right protections in place. And what I learned through a series of events led me to come to the home from a minor repair that was needed, a water line repair. That's what I was told, to find hardware behind the home that was very flammable and explosive, that turned out to be an extraction system for THC, that ultimately led me to go to law enforcement and get a search warrant, and within a couple of days find a tremendous amount of chemicals, drugs, an arsenal of guns, more explosive hardware, and then the journey that took place after that. I really found myself jumping through an extensive amount of what I call 100 huge hurdles in the first 100 days.
Yeah. Yeah. So you really had to go down a journey. And what you learned was that insurance doesn't cover properties when they've had a criminal activity happen in them. So insurance kind of dropped away. You literally went through a large loss that enabled you to see that laws need to be changed. What are some of the laws that need to happen right now?
Sure. The next stages of that, one of the things that I had to go through is I actually had to evict the tenant. And then it was over a month before then I could get a meth certified meth testing company in there to learn the significantly high levels of meth contamination in our home. The health impacts are compelling. You can't ignore them. It's a conversation that nobody was having. And so you're right. I learned that because of criminal activity and environmental impacts, as much as insurance has served me in many areas of my life for a lot of years, in this particular case, we are not protected when there's criminal activity, even though I had the appropriate insurance riders to have a tenant in my home. But under residential real estate, I have yet to find a carrier nationally that will underwrite it through any brokerage office. Commercial does tend to be a little bit different. I went on a journey with my home where I learned from the remediation companies that I had up there. Once they reviewed the testing results, they were all willing to try to remediate it, but the levels were so high. The standards here in our state is 0.5 micrograms per centimeter squared. I know that's a daunting sort of statistic, but 0.5, and yet 9 of the 11 zones in my home were between 69 and 119.
Wow.
Wow. And they were all willing to try, but nobody, to be honest, really thought that they could get it clean to even come close to those levels. And there's no guarantees, and it's a significantly expensive process. So the recommendation was also, where I received some of those bids, to demolition the home. I went through a legal process that took over the next 18 months to try to hold the parties responsible. The tenant, who eventually fled his criminal trial, he was arrested on 14 felony counts. Again, there was a major amount of drugs, weapons in the community, hardware, and weapons, and arsenal of guns, and hardware that was highly explosive, that was dangerous. And the things that I learned about the process was, when it comes to legislative changes, is I eventually ended up having to sell my home for a significant loss to its current value, just to get out of my mortgage. One of the things people don't realize is, when you walk through this journey, you have to pay your mortgage, even though it's condemned by the county and you can't live in it. There were significant legal fees that I had to pay, thousands of dollars every month, just to walk through this process, to ultimately then, for me, mediate at a percentage, a small percentage of what I felt was my total loss. and my costs over the next over that 18 months. And the tenant fled. He was never charged for his criminal activity, or never sentenced for his criminal activity, and he still continues to be at large, probably contaminating other homes. What I learned, specific to your question about the legal piece, the legislative piece, is that we have some great standards within Colorado for purposes of tolerance for low levels. But once a home is remediated to that standard, disclosure isn't required. So I sold my home fully disclosed of meth contamination, and then it was purchased by people that thought that they could have it remediated and keep it as an investment property. It turned out that the remediation process was probably more daunting than they anticipated. I have no idea fully, but they ended up selling it 5.5 months or so after they bought it from me, by getting the remnants of the contamination encapsulated through a variance process, is what I understand from the reports that are on the CDPHE website, the Colorado Department of Public Health and Environment. And then they sold it undisclosed, and they sold it for almost $300,000 more than what I sold it to them for, which means they got all my hard-earned equity over the years and my hard-earned work. And I became houseless, not homeless, but houseless in that process.
Yeah. And I think some of the statistics that are very shocking. Can you give us, we've just got a couple more minutes here. Can you give us a glimpse into, this is not, I mean, we always think this happens in another neighborhood or to somebody else, but give us some of the statistics around this that are so shocking.
Sure. And that's where my journey took me, is that it wasn't just me. I've had conversations with so many people along the Front Range and elsewhere that have impacted, and the conversations need to, in this type of environment, come out, especially in this hot real estate market where disclosure is not required. Statistics are daunting. 75 or more percent, in some instances, I've heard 85 to 90% of all properties tested have some level of meth contamination. And of those, anywhere from 20 to 30% approximately need additional testing, because they test higher than the standards, and some level of remediation, which could be minor, could be changing out a fan in a bathroom, to a significant level like mine, or even a full-on demo. I have talked to people that were elderly, 86, who had a health person in their home that helped them that smoked meth, to a young woman who Airbnbs a room out in her home, to a family right at the pandemic who purchased a home and found out afterwards their home was impacted with meth and had to move out while the pandemic was just starting. Those are just a few of the stories that I heard. That was my call to action.
Yeah. So that was your call to action. You're seeing this happening. The numbers were incredibly high in all different neighborhoods and all different, just all different types of homes. And where do you recommend people go to? I mean, so anybody buying a house should, one, be testing their house for meth toxins.
That's correct. I know it's a people are profiling. Oh, it won't happen in my neighborhood. This home doesn't look like a meth home. You can't see it. You can't smell it. It should be a standard test, similar to any other inspection item that you would normally do in any home. Through the awareness process that I have gone through throughout Colorado and beyond, where hundreds of realtors have taken our class now online, they are notifying their buyers, and more people are finding that a home that they wrote a contract on, they spend the money and get it tested, that they're finding that it does have contamination. And at least they're getting aware of the options that they have and becoming informed, because remediation, I can tell you from the research that I did through the experts, remediation does not mean it's gone. The
Yeah.
testing is good as they try, and the departments is as good as the processes they put in place. It is not foolproof. And ultimately, if you buy a home contaminated and it's found and it doesn't test positive when you buy it, but it's contaminated down the road, you will be stuck with the price tag to fix it.
Yeah, and it's pricey. So I know you're working with some of our representatives in the state of Colorado to change up disclosure pieces. Anything else that you're working on along those lines?
Yes, I'm the current session is going, and I am hoping by the next general session that our state has that we can put some uh, 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 laws in place that require that even if it's remediated to the standard, that it is disclosed so people have an opportunity to learn about meth toxins and make those decisions for themselves and their families. If it was done right, well, then what's the big secret, right?
Right.
I mean, why are you hiding it? I know people that have disclosed their properties that it was contaminated, and they are being penalized because they disclosed it, and have been told that they're stigmatizing their home by their own choice. I mean, it's wrong by all levels, and this conversation needs to be had. It needs to be done at not just a local and state level, but the people that I talk through throughout the nation, every community, it's like, oh yes, we have a meth problem here. It's in Connecticut, it's in Atlanta, it's in Michigan, it's in New York, it's California, it's everywhere. And people are being blind to the fact that, oh, there is this funny looking house down the road. It doesn't affect me. And that's not true, because I can assure you from what was found in my home, if my home had blown up, it's really hard to say the impacts, the health and the safety of our community as to where that could have taken us. I'm not here to sell fear. I'm here to sell awareness so people can become educated.
Yeah. And you are so inspiring to me, Kathi. You are channeling your inner Erin Brockovich. I know we're going to be talking about Kathi at some point, just in the same ways that we've talked about Erin Brockovich, because she's out really on a mission to make a change and to get people to start being aware. So thank you so much, Kathi. I know you're also speaking to hundreds of realtors at a time. So just so people know, who do you love to speak to?
And the real estate community from my previous experience and my previous career is where I started, because I thought that could have some of the largest ripple effects.
Mm-hmm.
But it's anybody and everybody. It's the direct consumer. It's property owners, buyers and sellers. It's renters. It's lenders. It's the insurance industry, the health industry. Law enforcement needs to become more aware of what traditionally can impact. There's a lot of folks that just need that education level. So even one time smoking meth recreationally in a room could impact it beyond the standards of that state. So it's important to get this information out. And we welcome the chance to talk to anybody and everybody that would like to have a conversation.
Thank you, Kathi.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, now let's talk with Kathleen June, who is she's our resident in our mastermind group, really helping all of us build better online courses, because she has such deep wisdom when it comes to how we as adults learn. You've been doing this your whole life. You've been creating. Tell us a little bit about you, Kathleen.
Hi. Thank you, Cami. Well, I started out as a classroom teacher. I taught junior high and high school. And I always say that if I can teach 35 to 40 junior high school students, I can teach anybody anything. And somewhere along the line, I think in my 30s, I was trained as a trainer for nonprofit volunteer work I was doing. And I just realized I had this incredible full body shakeup that this was what I was meant to do. And not that I didn't like teaching kids, but teaching adults became my great passion. And I learned the difference. And I think these days, the more sophisticated public school education becomes, the more aligned it is with adult learning principles. because human beings are human beings. But the basic tenet is that we as adults bring our entire life, all of our experiences and our fears and our beliefs and our hopes and our dreams to our learning, to your digital course. So what we want to do as digital course instructors is structure the course and share our passion and our inspiration and our deep, deep love of this service that we're offering the people that we care about, that we structure the course so that people are welcome to bring their whole self and share with each other and deepen and enrich their own learning experience.
Yeah. And we learn, I mean, people learn in different ways. So can you talk a little bit about that? I mean, each one of us probably on the four of us here probably all learn differently. What are the ways that you help course builders, content builders really bring all these aspects to learning?
Well, people learn visually, auditorily, people learn by reading, people learn, but most people, no matter what, I mean, we all have share all the basic ways to learn, but we have preferences.
Mm-hmm.
We all learn by doing,
right.
by getting our hands dirty, by trying it out, by practicing, by comparing what we saw or what we did with what other people in the class did. So we structure every session, every discussion has a way for people to share what they just saw, even if it's a recorded session. We have
mm-hmm.
journal sheets, we have worksheets, we have workbooks. We have ways for people to reflect and to make meaning of what they just saw. And then we build in ways which is so important for them to, what we call generalize, for them to make meaning of it. What does this mean to me? And how is it alike or similar to other experiences I've had? And then ways to help them actually use this in their life.
Yeah.
To set them up, to hold their hand, to make sure that they have a way to practice this at home or at work.
So as we're working with, so for example, I have an online community and I'm developing all these different modules. And I know you and I have worked on this on some of my different online learning programs, and looking at each single module has elements that address our learning styles across the room that we've got here. And then more importantly, putting that into action. How do people roll up their sleeves and actually do and have that feedback channel or loop is what can really help our people learn and integrate our teachings so that they're stepping into using that information in a more solid and consistent way.
Exactly. Yeah. Thank you.
Yeah. And I know you just helped. So we had Shelly on earlier this week. Shelly Shell was on here earlier this week, and you've been helping her with her programs, right? She's getting ready to launch this whole program. How did you just share a little bit about how you helped her through that process? The
very first thing we do is have a really rich discussion about her passion for this work and what she wants for her clients, how she wants the world to be because of what her clients learn and are able to do. So from that, then we listed all of her potential topics, just all the things, just rapid fire that she would like to teach people. Mm-hmm. And based on what lights her up the most and what feeds her soul the most, that's where we started with Module 1.
And you know what I love about that is because that's really bringing the best of us, right? It's if we can start with that fire in us, and we're bringing that into that first interaction with our clients, they are going to feel and experience all of us in that brightness.
Absolutely. And, especially in this day and age, it's so apparent that anybody can teach facts and data. Mm-hmm. Anybody can throw information up on us.
And there's a lot of that going on, right?
There is. But it's your passion and your heart and your soul and your intention and your desire for your students and for the world that makes your course.
That's cool. That's super cool. And so as you started the module there, what was next with her?
Well, we work on, she did a lot of really tough work, really discerning and pulling threads, and to get down to her knowledge, skill, and attitude, her learning objectives for every session.
Okay.
So that's where the structure begins, so that no matter what happens in the class, no matter if you forget what you're talking about or something else comes to you, or in a live session, a student might ask you a question or write it in chat that tells you that maybe you need to address that. Your knowledge, skills, and attitude take you right back to where you need to be. Yeah. And always stay on course, always get back on course. And it just provides so much clarity, so that there's continuity and congruence between each session, that there's an internal logic and a flow to each session.
Mm-hmm. And then within each session, you're bringing all these aspects of serving the different learning styles, serving the action, so you're really looking at it from a methodical approach, so that overall class then becomes, each piece is building on the next. And if the client is actually doing the work, they're going to be really growing and stepping up into doing the work in a bigger way.
Right.
Very cool. Very cool. So, and I know there's, like you said, there's a lot of courses being put out into the world right now. And, I think if you had one thing to say to people around, thinking about their content, that their digital content that they're putting out into the world, what would you say to them? That, say you've got 100 course builders building digital content. What would you want them to know that they may not know?
That when people, marketers forget about adult learning or don't know about it.
Right.
And that when you really want to reach people at a deep level, you need to give them the depth of yourself. You need to do the same, mirror for them. So in my digital course, How To, I teach you exactly the way I want to see you teach your own students.
Cool.
So we go through the process with you that you are going to take them through.
That's awesome. And so really being able, so your course, tell us a little bit about this course right now. Tell us more about it.
Well, it has 6 sessions that are very basic. What you get at the end of 6 sessions is a very, very detailed roadmap of your online course. So you're very clear on what your passion and your intentions are. You're very clear on what your learning objectives, your overarching learning objectives for the entire program, and the learning objectives for each module are. You have all the details of what you want to say, how you want to say it, where you introduce different ideas. You have your resources identified. You have your equipment and props identified. And from there, if you want to continue with the second stage, then I can help you actually walk you through developing your slide deck and your narrative.
Awesome. Well, and so, and where can people learn more about this course?
Right now you can email me for a complimentary session on what your passion and intention is for your students and what you want, how you want to change the world. So that is at KJV as in Victor, IT as in Tom, ALE @me.com.
Awesome. And make sure you go put that into the comments after this is over today, so that people can find you. So thank you, Kathleen. I'm super excited about what you're doing and how you're really helping. And I know so many people in our mastermind group have really leaned into you in developing their courses, and their courses are really good because of it. So I love that your gifts are being shared in the world. So thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And Tara McFarland, it's so great to have you here with us today. You are doing great things in the world of working with engineers, help them. Tell us a little bit about your story of stepping into this work that you're doing, and just this wisdom that you know that you are going to be bringing into your community, that you are bringing into your communities.
Sure. Thanks, Cami. I'm super excited to be here and to be talking about what I'm creating. So just to give everyone a little bit of background, I'm a civil engineer, specifically geotechnical. I've been working on dams for the last 14 and a half years. And I have overall about 23 years of experience, and most of that was in the technical design realm. So when I transitioned from technical design to a program manager position, which is more of a non-technical project management type position, is kind of where the wheels started to fall off of my career. And what was interesting to me was that I had a really strong technical background, and throughout my career, I had sort of this suggestion to change the way I was communicating with people, but it was never, ever anything that was like a really big deal. And I was always getting high performance review marks, right? People wanted to work with me. People wanted to, see what I was working on. People liked being on my teams when I was a team lead in technical design. That really was like, it was just sort of like this suggestion, right? I get into program management, and all of a sudden it felt like all of this communication stuff was a really big deal.
Right.
And what after like 3 years of it, I just completely burned out. And a lot of that had to do with like, I didn't know how important communication was. I didn't know how to talk to people who weren't engineers. I was working with multidisciplinary teams at this point, and I didn't really understand our hierarchy and like how things move up and down the chain.
Mm-hmm.
And when I was brought into the program manager position, it's not like any of that was taught.
Yeah. It was like, here you go. We're just going to dump you into this new role and figure it out. Right.
Yeah. And it's like, go to project management training classes where there's, a module on leadership, but they don't really dive into it too much in terms of how teams work and really what the team dynamics are. Because basically what I found is that it was the team dynamics that were contributing to the overall picture of like, all of a sudden I was being called into my boss's office and like just going, what happened? Like, what happened to my whole career?
Right.
And so after that, after sort of, it was like the straw that broke the camel's back. There were a few instances of things happening, and I was in a very stressful position. I just went to my boss and said, I can't do this anymore. And can I go part-time? Can we find something else for me to do? And she agreed. Like she was totally on board with, keeping me in the group and finding, something that I could do so that I could just sort of take a breather. Mm-hmm. And in the time that I took a breather, I did a ton of personal development work. And what I found was that I am highly intuitive, and I had actually been noticing a lot of things, but I didn't know how to bring that information forward.
Right.
Because I just was all of my training was all technical. That's all that it was focused on. And it's like facts and figures and all the numbers and can you prove it and all this stuff. And really what I was sensing into was that there were areas in our teams that could use improvement. And a lot of it is communication. We're not really taught how to communicate.
Right.
And so what that led me to now is creating a consulting company where I can like bring this conversation of, hey, it's okay to be vulnerable. Like I joked about like vulnerability being a 4-letter word because to me it totally was.
Right. It's like, oh, I can't do that with my team, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it would turn into me looking like a bully.
Right. Right. So as you're looking through, and I know it's really fun to see that you've got this opportunity right now that you're testing and you're trialing this within your own organization to be able to take to other organizations. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah. So over the last year or so, what I've done in my organization is really started the ball rolling on let's look at our team dynamics and how can we change the way that we are essentially doing business. And, that was something that I just went to my boss one day and said, I think I want to do this. Is this okay? And he was totally on board. Mm-hmm. And nobody had ever brought that kind of idea to the forefront in my group. Right. And so what I've done is I've surveyed all the different groups that worked on our teams. I spent like a fair amount of time last summer doing that, got a lot of great feedback. And really what we found is that it's a culture thing. We have a certain type of culture. In our case, it tends to be pretty polite. And then that kind of creates like this weird dynamic of nobody really wants to shake things up. We're just trying to get the project done. Is what I saw. And so I compiled all of that data. I mean, I interviewed probably like 50 people, facilitated these group calls with each office that works on our projects, and took all this data to my boss and then said, okay, I don't know what to do with this, but I think we need to go find somebody to come in and work with us on it. And I actually contacted a consulting company that does like organizational development changes, like transforming team dynamics. Like it was exactly what I was looking for. And I talked to them a little bit and figured out that that is the type of consultant that I would love to bring on board.
Right. As part of your team that you'll work with others in the future. Yeah.
And so I'm in the middle right now of getting a contract out. It's not as easy as I would love it to be because I do work for a really big organization where I can't just hire somebody that I want to hire. Right. So I'm working through the contracting process to bring, that type of consultant on board to come in and like really assess like what is it that we could change and shift so that our projects go a little bit more smoothly. Because what we're finding is that, I mean, people they burn out in my position, or they're burned out and don't know it.
Yeah.
Is a lot of like what
and
happens.
This is what you want to shift. So tell us a little bit about the vision of the company that you're building.
Yeah. So my company, Create Conversation, is all about developing like the next generation of leaders within a company. And so what I want to do is to go into companies and really help them scope out like where it is, like if they know that there's something going on in their projects and they're just not sure, help them scope out what it is. And then in that, once we kind of have this idea of what to focus on, then I can bring either coaching or, if they're, I can be the bridge to like bringing whatever needs to be brought into this company to help shift the dynamic. And so that's one of the things.
And it's the dynamic of the team and the dynamic of the project so that the project gets, because this is your whole career has been built on projects, right?
Yes. Whole career has been built on
projects. And what you've learned through this whole process is that by really finding these better communication skills, by being vulnerable, by really being able to tap into these different skill sets that you discovered changed everything for you, which it did within the organization. The wheels got put back on the bus.
Exactly. Yeah.
And so being able to work with engineers in that perspective on their projects so that their projects run much more smoothly.
Yeah. And one of the things that really has helped me is going through a lot of the personal growth and development. I'm in a coaching training program now, working with the coach that I worked with for a year. So I'm like 18 months into working with her. And it's been like really an awesome opportunity to lean into all of my intuition and what I sense and like really all the energy underneath what's going on. And that's what I would consider my superpower. and really like honing that and bringing it forward.
You would have never claimed that 5 years ago, I'm guessing.
Oh no, I was always wrong.
That's the evolution of us when we discover these unique gifts that we have inside of us. And I think when we're building a brand from the inside out, you owning that component of you, that gift of you is going to be your superpower and how you're serving your clients. Who are going to be the companies? I know you work within the government space right now. So I think that's probably tell us more about your ideal target clients.
I would love to work with companies like, my industry is really the construction realm. And so that's kind of where I'm focused. I have a lot of contacts in that realm. I've worked in consulting and in government. But my ideal client is really like a company where they are looking to develop their entry to mid-level career people. And they also want to kind of assess on like where can they improve? Just in terms of project processes, how projects go. And really what I'm focused on is really probably the communication piece and the culture piece, because if we can bring forward like everybody's strengths, and if we can bring forward a safe space for people to speak up and where they feel safe and where they can all their projects are, function on transparency rather than like kind of this backdoor stuff that happens where you say one thing in a meeting, but you're kind of holding back and not really bringing everything forward in terms of, I was in a situation where we had a partner and that partner was holding back so much information. And I remember getting into that project, and 6 months into that project, I was like, this whole thing's going to go off the rails. Yeah. And then it did.
It did.
Right. And part of that was because there just wasn't this space created to where everyone felt comfortable going, hey, these are the expectations. And that's what I want to create. And then like, if we can create that space for everybody working in our industry, our projects, all the projects would go smoother. Like I don't know how they wouldn't. And the other thing is like, well, what would your career look like? Would you be like super excited to go to work? Right. If you were really functioning on your strengths and you felt safe to like speak up and you weren't like penalized for speaking up or, and we all were able to have like these crucial conversations or difficult conversations and not be afraid to have them, Yeah.
Yeah. And I think what's going to happen, I think exactly what you're saying is it's going to impact the projects. It's going to impact the effectiveness of that company and that organization. It's also going to help each person's individual health, right? I think there's an element of that. I think that when you go back to the time when it all broke down for you, it was impacting you personally. And, so being able to impact the personal experience, the personal, life of these people is going to be an important part of that as well.
Yeah. When it all broke down for me, I was depressed and I was in therapy and I was on medication and I didn't know what was happening. And it had been a pretty long trajectory of me just sort of getting to the final point of like, I literally sat on my living room floor one afternoon, just feeling like I was just shattered in a million pieces and going like, I don't understand what happened.
Right. Right. When you've done so well in your career all along and suddenly it didn't feel good.
Yeah, exactly. And I didn't know why. And what I uncovered as I like really started to look at myself was that there's literally no leading anybody until you can lead yourself. And I think, maybe that's said a lot and it might be kind of a buzzword now, but it's true because I wasn't comfortable being me I was trying to be whatever I thought they wanted me to be, which in that space of the engineering industry is very masculine.
Mm-hmm.
And so I took on a lot, like I just lead with masculine energy, right? And I took on all of that stuff and I pushed all of my intuition to the side and ignored it because that wasn't the way to be
Right.
anywhere that I worked. And that was super detrimental to me. And it's detrimental to women everywhere. And it's also detrimental to men because then we don't have diverse teams.
Right.
And that's another aspect that, like, if we can really wholeheartedly embrace like everyone's strengths and be okay with vulnerability and just be like really open and transparent, like we would have more diversity. I know you had Dana on yesterday or on Tuesday, and she was talking about the statistics of women in engineering. And it's true. Like, I couldn't believe it. When I graduated from college in 1997, it was like 23% of women go to college to become engineers. And I think the statistics that she cited on Tuesday was like 25% of women graduate with college degrees in engineering or in STEM. And I was like, it hasn't improved.
Let's move that needle.
And why hasn't it?
Yeah. Yeah. And so really, I think what you're talking about is helping women leaders show up in their engineering fields, truly being themselves, which, at the end of the day, I'm all about all of us being ourselves and shining that light and not trying to lead in a way that's not natural to us. Mm-hmm. And that's going to make, again, like you said, healthier us. It's going to make better projects. It's going to make better companies and organizations, and it's going to make a better impact on the world, because what we will produce in our world will be much more holistically brought to life with women's wisdom in the mix of all of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. And I think that, we have a lot to learn from working with men, and the men also have a lot to learn from working with women. And so, in my own personal journey, I mean, the person who was the catalyst to like, hey, you wake up, was a man. And right. I've gone through like so much, like dealing with, he's telling me what to do. Why is this guy telling me what to do? I really don't want to listen to this guy telling me what to do. But that was like all the stuff that I had taken on from years and years of being in this environment where I just felt like no one was listening to me.
Yeah.
So and like, we talk about it a lot too, the difference between men and women, and how do men and women come together to work together?
Right.
Because we all need to work together.
Yeah. And so I think I'm so excited for all that you're bringing into the world and how you're going to be, really impacting teams especially in the engineering space, and bringing different conversations, bringing vulnerable conversations. So I'm thrilled to be on this journey with you.
Thanks. I am super excited to create what's next.
Yeah. So, what's one pearl of wisdom that you would like to leave with our listeners today, Tara?
I mean, the line that just keeps coming to my head is that vulnerability is not a 4-letter word. Mm-hmm. And to also just like really lean into like, what do you want your career to look like? How do you want to be? How do you want to feel when you go to work? Yeah. And let's create that.
Yeah, I love that. And where can people learn more about you and your work?
Currently, you can go to LinkedIn. Mm-hmm. So I'm under Tara McFarland. You can look for Create Conversation. I actually just put up a survey. I'm really curious to know about leadership development in organizations. It's an anonymous 10-question survey. It takes like 5 minutes. I would love for people to take that survey.
Is that on LinkedIn, or is that?
It's on LinkedIn.
Okay, awesome.
Posted it to my page today.
Okay.
I'm a learner and an information gatherer. So
yeah, and I know you're deep into building your brand and your website, and all those pieces are coming along. And this survey is going to help serve that. So that's awesome.
Exactly.
I love that you're doing the survey.
Yeah.
Very good. Thank you so much, Tara. Kathleen, so if one pearl of wisdom from you for our listeners.
My pearl of wisdom is to be the one, be the coach in your industry who brings your whole self into your digital course.
Ooh, I like it.
inspiration.
I love it, love it, love it. And I know you said where people can reach you, but can you share that one more time?
Sure. I'm also on LinkedIn, Kathleen June, and that's my email address is kjvitale@me.com.
At what again?
At me.com.
Okay, awesome. Thank you, Kathleen. And Kathy, what is your one pearl of wisdom for our listeners today?
Well, I just want to say I have just so enjoyed this conversation with everybody on communication. There's definitely a thread going on here with all of us here. And Kathleen has helped me developing a digital course as well. So the process has just been a phenomenal process. So just wanted to share that. And it gets to my message where prevention is key. We're just coming out of almost a year and a half of a pandemic, and knowledge is power. And as I develop and get this information out on many platforms, digitally and otherwise, I know I probably misspoke or missed saying property managers are at the heart of the message where I want to share this information from, because of where it happened to me. And people should have better communication with the service providers that they reach out to, including and being part of the decision-making process of who is going to be in your home. That should be part of the process. So knowledge is power, because it helps with the prevention. And if you can get in front of it, then you're golden.
Awesome.
So thank you.
Awesome. Well, ladies, this has been so much fun. I love hearing your stories, your impact that you're making on the world. I'm just so honored to have each of you in my community, in my tribe, and to share your stories. And let's go do the work that we're meant to do. So we're all here. We've all got purpose, and it's so amazing to see each of you doing your work. So thank you so much. And thanks for everybody who tuned in. And everybody, Kathy and Tara and Kathleen, make sure you go out to the video and put your contact information in the comments and that sort of thing. And this is showing up on both Facebook Live and YouTube Live as well. So you can do it in both places. So thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you.
Thank you.